Hello and welcome to St. Mark's Episcopal Church in LaGrange, Georgia. My name is Alan Pruitt and I am the rector here, and we're here today in my office for our Sunday school class. But it's not your typical Sunday school class. Welcome. You might be asking, why are you calling it that? Well, here at St. Mark's we tend to talk about our education in terms of Sunday mornings. Yes, we have Bible study and reading groups and Lenten programs. We also have Meals on Wheels and worship ministries and many other opportunities to be formed. But Sunday school is the place we show up to learn. However, this year, given the pandemic, we are looking at doing a lot of things differently, including Sunday school. We can't all gather in one room to learn, so why ask everyone to try to meet at the same time? So it is Sunday school, but not quite. Everything we do at church, including Sunday school, worship, Meals on Wheels, or pastoral care, everything we do ought to help us learn how to tell the story of God's love. And these classes will be no different, even if they are very different from anything we've done before. This year, we'll be looking at Scripture through a three-step process. We'll take one of the readings for the week and ask 3 questions about it. Why all the steps? Let me try to explain by telling you something that I recently read in the magazine Living Church. David Foster Wallace, an author, gave a now famous commencement address at Kenyon College in May of 2005. He began with this story. There are these 2 young fish swimming along, and they happen to meet an older fish swimming the other way, who nods at them and says, "Morning, boys. How's the water?" And the 2 young fish swim on for a bit, and then eventually one of them looks over at the other and says, "What the hell is water?" It's not until the end that Wallace finally gives the payoff for the story, telling the graduates that worship surrounds all of us all the time, whether we are aware of it or not. It's like a fish swimming in water. We are swimming in worship. In the day-to-day trenches of adult life, there is no such thing as atheism. There is no such thing as not worshiping. Everybody worships. The only choice we get is what to worship. And the compelling reason for maybe choosing some sort of God or spiritual type thing to worship, be it Jesus Christ or Allah, be it Yahweh or the Wiccan mother goddess or the 4 noble truths, or some other inviolable set of ethical principles. The reason to make those choices is that pretty much anything else you worship will eat you alive. So, we ought to worship. We ought to worship God. But how? How do we offer ourselves to God? It's a great question. It is, but it's not the first question. It's the last question. We have to start with the first question, which is why we have our 3 steps, our 3 questions. We should always start at the beginning, and so what was there? I'll ask you, what was there in the beginning? Nothing. Just nothing and God. We should always start with God. So we will start each week by reading one of the scripture passages of the day, and then we'll ask, who is God in this story? And when we look closely, when we start with God, we will often discover things we never would have seen otherwise. When we start at the beginning with the first question, who is God in this story? Then we will see that God is loving, merciful, powerful, creative, redeeming, present, and and on and on. Every story says something a little different about God, emphasizes something a bit different about God. No one story can tell the whole truth of who we are, much less the whole truth of who God is. And so every week we'll have to ask that question. We'll have to start with, who is God in this story? Then we can move on to the next question. Who am I in this story? Or who are we in this story? And we will find out. We will find out. We are gifted. God gives us gifts. We are resourceful. God gives us resources and skills to develop those resources. We are also sinful. We fall short. We mess things up. We are stingy or unmerciful. We are human beings. But we can't be honest about who we are until we acknowledge who God is. By starting with God, merciful, powerful, loving, then we are able to be upfront about who we are. If God is simply a powerful judge, we are likely to hide our sin, not be honest about it. But if God is not only powerful, but also merciful and loving and redeeming, we are more apt to be honest about who we are. And once we know who God is and who we are, we can ask that last question. The question we too often jump to in the first place. What is God inviting us or challenging us to do in this reading? Sometimes it is an invitation. Sometimes it's a challenge. Are we being asked to make a change in ourselves? Are we being asked to look at the world differently? Are we being asked to reorient our values or the values of our community? But we can't ask the last question first, or else it will feel like the wrong question. And if we ask that first, we're likely to get frustrated and just give up on the whole thing. No, we've got to start with the first question. Who is God? So, there it is. That's what we're working on. Each week you'll get a video with a 10 to 15 minute lecture looking at one of the week's readings through the lens of those three questions. Who is God? Who are we? What is God inviting us to do? I will offer many of the lectures, but we'll also have lectures from our bishop, from clergy colleagues of mine across the country, and from parishioners here at St. Mark's. Those videos will be released on Thursday morning with the weekly email, and you'll get another link emailed to you in the Sunday morning worship email. Now, you can certainly click that link and watch the video by yourself. Solo Bible study is good, and it is surely better than no Bible study at all. But even better is the chance to join together with a small group and learn the story of God's love alongside the people God has brought into your life. Not only are those groups a great chance to learn the story, they're also a great way to connect with some people that you miss from St. Mark's. Now, form your own group if you like, or email me to join a group. But either way, please join a group. Those groups will be kept small for a couple of practical reasons. First, so everyone can participate, and second, because it's easier to schedule a smaller group of people than a larger one. We already have 2 groups that are meeting on Sunday morning before and after the service, and our youth will meet after the service each week. Eventually, we hope that some of these groups will be able to meet outdoors with proper precautions in place, and as we try to do an effort to do some meaningful and safe things to bring us physically together. But when that time comes, the choice will be up to each group. So, That's a bunch of explanation, and I know that that's all important, but it does mean there's not much time to dig into one of the readings this week. Instead, I'll ask you, if you were doing the study this week, which reading would you focus on? And how might you answer those 3 questions after looking at the reading? The 3 questions: who is God in this reading? Who are you in this reading? What is God inviting you to do in this reading? We are woven into the story of God and God's people. It is not a story that ended in days gone by. It is our story too. So please, join me this fall as we learn a new way to tell our story, which is the story of God's love. Thank you. I'll see you soon.